Hello, welcome to this lesson on the advantages and disadvantages of distribution channels, part 2, which is Learning Objectives 6.2, and it's in the Cambridge Nationals Level 1 and 2 in Information Technologies. So in the last video, the one before this, we discussed that there were 6 distribution channels mentioned in the course specification. Messaging services, websites, VoIP, multimedia, cloud-based and mobile apps. And we looked at the first 3, and hopefully if you were following along in my lessons you made a table and filled in the disadvantages of the first 3. Today we're going to be doing the second 3 on that list. So what is multimedia? Multimedia generally refers to any kind of media, any kind of information that's presented using a combination of different media types. So some combination of text, audio, of still image, animations, videos, and interactivity. Just included on this video 2 different ways video can be embedded into a PowerPoint. Not all multimedia is in a PowerPoint obviously, but I wanted to show you that we have video that can be put directly in. So if I own the video, if I own the video file, I can put it directly and insert it in.
I love that thing. It performs exactly like the day I got it. But
or I can embed a video from somewhere like YouTube, where I don't actually own the video. It's going to be streamed to my computer.
We'll leave you with sting. I don't know what that means. Cherry MX Brown switches from a number of years ago.
The first one is multimedia. What is multimedia?
It performs exactly
multimedia is generally refers to anything that's presented using a combination of media. So text, audio, still images, animation, multimedia,
so I don't really need the number pad that badly anymore.
So if you've got a combination of several of those things, then it's counted as a multimedia experience. So on this slide here, I've included 2 examples of videos. I've got an embedded video, sorry, not embedded. I've got a video here which I've downloaded and actually have locally and have attached to the PowerPoint, so it's on my computer. And then here I have an embedded video from YouTube.
On a bucket, on windows and doors.
2 examples to show you that both can be done. I mean, it's not really relevant to this course, or to this module, but it's interactivity.
Cherry MX
so interactivity means when you can in some way influence what's going on the screen. So this is just an example of an interactive soundboard. So if I wanted to, on this website there's an interactive
Pull it down! Pull it down! Yaga yo! Yaga yo!
So that's an interactive soundboard mimicking a pirate radio station.
It performs exactly.
That's Linus Tech Tips launching himself. Right, so multimedia basically means anytime you have 2 or more of these types of media together in the same place. Now, examples of multimedia. There's lots of examples, and they're all very different. So I'll go through some examples, but it's not exhaustive. There's many different types. So an interactive whiteboard you might see in a classroom is multimedia. When you go to a restaurant like McDonald's and you use the screens to order something, that's multimedia because it's images and interactivity. Microsoft Teams, which is something you'll be getting to know, is an interactive multimedia platform for communicating and learning. You might have an interactive multimedia directions board in a shopping centre. A video conference is multimedia because you've got sight and vision and you can share files. And YouTube is multimedia because it has video and text comments, but also a video can include text, so you'd count that as multimedia as well. Now, advantages of multimedia is that the information and data can be shown or made available to one or many people. So all of these examples are accessible to many people at once. So interactive whiteboard would be many people in the classroom. These menus could be makes information available to anyone in the restaurant, anyone in the shopping centre. Microsoft Teams can communicate with lots of different members of your team at once. This is an interactive doctor I've put here, so that means being able to communicate with either a real doctor or an AI, artificial intelligence doctor over a computer screen. That would be in multimedia as well. So they can be shared with lots of people at the same time. Another advantage is that links to multimedia can be embedded on Facebook or Twitter or on Microsoft Teams. So here's an example of a web page with, well, the Twitter web page, and embedded on that.
Where is our leader? Where are you? Where is our leader at this time? At this time when our country...
So there's a video embedded into the website. Sorry, let me pause that. And underneath there you can see these are actually interactive elements here where you can comment, like or retweet a video or a tweet. And then Microsoft Teams, if you look here, you may not be familiar with this, but I've embedded an assignment in there. So if you press view assignment, you'd be able to interact with the assignment. Okay, another advantage of multimedia is that different elements can be used, so sight, text, video, animations to improve your message. I've got an example of a video here from a YouTube channel I really enjoy called Crash Course, and I'll show you this video and you can see why this is such a good example of a multimedia video.
Things were too big and heavy to move. Travel was too difficult. Distances too far. Our bodies were too weak. If you can think of an invention that revolutionised the way people live, odds are it was created by mechanical engineers. And I don't think I'm being biased. Theirs is the field of engineering that focuses on the design, construction, operation and maintenance of machines and mechanical systems. Things were too...
So that had video at the start, it had animations, more video, sound, audio, and then here it had text with animations around the text. So it made it a lot
Things
more...
were too big and...
It made it a lot more engaging than any of those one single things on their own. So that's a really good example of multimedia. Another advantage is demonstrations can be included of how a product works. So for example, I bought this physical board game a little while ago, and it told me on the box, instead of giving me a manual, it gave me a video, sort of multimedia video to explain to me how the game is played, rather than just relying on a manual.
And work towards their goal. The agenda deck represents the objectives and progress.
So that's a kind of a way multimedia can be used to demonstrate a product of some type. Multimedia is also very easy to change. It's flexible and can be used for many purposes. So as an example of that, I've thought about the website such as Shutterstock, where you can get images, footage, music, and lots of different people can take those same elements, those photos, video or music, and use them in many different ways to enhance their particular projects that they might be working on. But also, you may have your own video clip that you may use in one scenario, let's say in a presentation, and then you may use the same video clip in a YouTube video. So you can use the same piece of media in different ways. So that's another use. So that's another example of what they're talking about here. Now this disadvantage, you may not have picked up on it, you may not have even read what it says on the bottom. What I've tried to show here is that a message given through multimedia can be lost if there are too many elements used. Now let's say my message was always wear a helmet. Now you may not have even seen that because there was so much going on. I had video and I had music in the background as well, which is turned off now. So the music wasn't on the video, the music was extra to the video. And then I had an animation come in and play on the screen, and your eyes might not have even been drawn down to my message down here, which was always wear a helmet. So the idea is multimedia is great, but if used poorly, it can actually end up making your message unclear or completely lost. Another disadvantage is if the quality of the multimedia is low, then the message may not be seen as reliable. My cat recently had kittens, so I was watching videos about how to know when the cat was about to give birth, and I was watching many videos, and I wanted to show you just two examples of how lower quality video can make you maybe see the information as less reliable. So this is the one, an example I thought was good.
If you are currently caring for a pregnant cat, or think you may do in the future, you should watch our Caring for a Pregnant Cat video first.
So I quite like that one. It had good elements that I thought made a professional looking video. And then this was the one I thought was a little bit less reliable.
And watch. If you know that she isn't attending to her kitten in a minute or so, again, break open that sack, use your gloves and use a dry towel and wipe that kitten off. And
there was just something about that, the way she'd set the video up in front of a window. There was a hiss on the audio. It just wasn't well produced, so it made me feel like what she was saying might not quite be as reliable as the quite clearly more professional cat charity one.
And get it still.
Okay, another disadvantage is if the users do not have the correct hardware or software, then some elements may not work as intended. So this is a screen you will all be familiar with. Adobe Flash Player is having trouble, and that's because they haven't currently got the latest version installed of Flash Player. So that's definitely a disadvantage. Also, for example, if you were trying to do a Zoom meeting, my actual laptop doesn't have a built-in webcam, so I've actually had to go and buy an extra webcam to be able to take part in Zoom meetings and video conferencing. So that's another issue as well. And sometimes too much information can be given. Now, you may not look up recipes online, but I've recently become quite frustrated with going to certain websites where I've just wanted a recipe for something like chocolate brownies. And so you go, right, great, recipe for chocolate brownies. And then they start to tell you kind of their whole life story. Pictures, great, tell you all these different things. Where's the recipe is what I'm thinking. Where's the recipe? And you keep scrolling down, scrolling for quite a long time, still not got to the recipe. Here it is, finally got to the recipe. So too much information or unnecessary information might actually completely turn you off, and you might just give up by the time you get to that point. So that's just one example of when too much information can be a bad thing. Next, we're going to talk about the cloud as a form of distribution channel. The cloud refers to any files that are stored in a remote location. So remote means away from where you are. So in the same way, remote control means you're controlling something from a distance or away from where the actual thing is. Remote location means somewhere away from where you are, and it's in a server farm usually rather than actually on your device. So examples of cloud-based storage are Google Drive and OneDrive when you store files on there, Office 365, so that kind of is incorporated with OneDrive. It's the idea that all the files you create in Excel, Word, your email contacts, your emails themselves, all those things are stored remotely on the cloud, and iCloud as well. But also, on top of that, you could say that Spotify and Netflix and those kind of things are also cloud-based storage, because they're storing the files, the music and the video files, in a remote location. You never, unless you have certain subscriptions, you never actually download those files. They're just streamed to you, and as soon as you stop watching, they're no longer on your device because they're stored in the cloud, not actually on your device. So advantages of cloud-based storage. Files are stored off-site, so can be used as a backup. So if you were to suffer a hardware failure, so your hard drive broke, or the file became corrupted, or somebody stole your hard drive or computer, or somebody stole your mobile phone, you would lose all the files that were on there. There would be no way for you to recover them if it wasn't for cloud storage. So cloud storage gives you that opportunity. As soon as you take a photo or you create a file, it then sends it to some server farm somewhere, so which we call the cloud. And then if you did lose your device in some way, you would then be able to recover those files almost immediately. Another advantage is that access rights can be given so that documents can be shared. So I have a few examples here. In my OneDrive, I have some files that I've shared. As you can see, it's shared, so other people can edit these. But then I have ones that are only for me, so no one else can share those. No one else can edit those at this point. So access rights allows different people to either read or even edit files. Another advantage of storing things on the cloud is that I mean, this you can apply security even if things aren't on the cloud, but it's something the exam board have given is that security can be implemented. So on here I have two examples of YouTube videos that I've uploaded. One is a private video, so only people who I've given the right to watch are allowed to watch that, and other ones are private. I mean, that's just one example, but obviously just using a basic password is also another form of security. Another big advantage of cloud storage is that you can buy more storage if you need it. So if you find you've used all of your storage on photos, you can get a subscription to increase how much you can store. Here's an example here of increasing your storage on Google, and price is shown there. Now, disadvantage of cloud storage. If I say to a class, you have to download something from OneDrive, but you have very poor internet at home, or maybe possibly even no internet at all, or you're in a location where there's no internet, then you're not going to be able to do that at all. So disadvantage is you must have internet access to be able to download stored files. Secondly, disadvantage, the cloud provider has access to the data and information stored on their cloud storage area. So potentially any information you store on the cloud could be looked at by the company that you've stored it with, so Google or Apple or Amazon, depending on who your cloud storage is with. Now, it hasn't generally been a problem so far, but you never know how that information could be used against you in some way. This isn't really talking about hacking, but hacking could be an issue. But really what I'm thinking more about is, in the future, we don't really know how governments might try and access the data that we have stored on cloud. It's something to be aware of, especially if you have sensitive information, whether you really want to be giving that to a company, because when you give it to a company to store on their cloud, you are also giving them the right to look at it as well, which they probably wouldn't do in general, but it is a possibility. Okay, moving on to the next, or the final one in fact, is mobile apps. So we all know what mobile apps are travel, but they have all different types of functions, for whether it's a travel app, fitness, a food app, games, something multimedia, social media, accessing the internet, utilities such as looking at your gas bill or your electricity bill, or just banking. Okay, so we're going to talk about the advantages. One advantage is that features can be included in the data and information to increase user interaction. So let's take Domino's for example. If you have a Domino's app, you can do several things on the Domino's app, such as ordering the food. You can also look at the delivery information or for when your pizza is actually going to arrive. They can do a satisfaction survey to see how well you think they have done, and you can also get deals sent to you. Those are some advantages of how the mobile app can be used to increase user interaction. So in terms of increasing user interactivity on an app like Netflix, you've got one thing there that says you can build your own queue, but they can also do things like take information about the programs you've watched to make new recommendations for you, and then you can say whether those are good recommendations or not. And so that is increasing your interactivity and potentially increasing the quality of the recommendations you get, for example. Spotify app will allow you to do things like certain songs, so it can make more recommendations, so very similar to what Netflix would do. And you can create stations from your favorite artists. So it's allowing you to take some control over what music you listen to, rather than just being, in the old days, having to listen to whatever was on the radio. You can also use it to connect to devices that might be nearby, so that you can play music through different speakers. So that's increasing your interactivity in that. Another advantage of apps is that money can be raised if people have to pay for the app. So an app like Headspace, for example, which is a meditation app, you have to pay an annual. It's free to start with, and then you pay an annual subscription if you wanted to carry on. So that's one way you can make money from apps. Disadvantages are that apps need to be constantly monitored and updated. So you'll be familiar with this sign here on your app store, if you have it, or something similar on Google Play or Android devices, is that it will tell you how many of your apps need updating. Now, it's very important that apps are updated, because it can fix any bugs that were in the app. It can also increase the security, because if hackers, for example, have found a way of getting around the security of an app, then the company that made the app may have improved the security. So if you don't update, then you might be vulnerable to being a victim of cybercrime. But it can also add and remove features, so add new ones or remove ones that were no good, and just generally improve it, make it into a new version, or add in features or whatever. Another disadvantage is that the app needs to be included on an app store, promoted so that people know it's there. When you go onto any app store, you're always going to be presented with the most common, most famous ones. If you wanted to break into the market with a new app, then you're really going to struggle against the massive and famous ones, the Facebook and Google style apps that are generally owned by the same companies. Is a very competitive market, and you have to go through the companies like Google and Apple to even get your own product on there. So it's a bit of an uphill struggle. So it can be very difficult or impossible to have a successful app without having to deal with Google or Apple, which means you're going to have to give them a share of your profits. And if you really want people to know about your app, you're going to have to pay for advertising. Otherwise, they're never going to find it. So that's another disadvantage of apps. Okay, so that's it. What I want you to do is to find the table that you had from the last lesson and add into it all the advantages and disadvantages that were discussed in this video.